Okay, so jumping back into this analysis, continuing with looking at the true crime junkie breakdown of what John is talking about. And so far, man, I love, and this is Ashley Flowers. She is the host of the True Crime Junkie podcast. I'm sorry, Crime Junkie podcast. And so far, man, I like what she's been able to do in terms of sort of getting information out of John Ramsey and making him feel comfortable enough to talk. So let's hop into the second part.
And that was a mistake. We shouldn't have done that.
Was that like did they advise against it? Did they think
they strictly advised. Well, we never asked them. We were back in Atlanta for the funeral. Some of our Boulder friends were there. They say, "Oh my God, the media's going crazy. You've got to show them that you're normal people, and Boulder's a wonderful place." They're really focused on making Boulder not suffer a reputational damage, nuts, but that was their focus.
That's weird though, right?
Oh, totally weird.
What was their goal? Like to make Boulder look safe? Like, I don't think it makes Boulder look good because you guys are saying there's a madman in Boulder.
Yeah. Well, and of course, Boulder was like, the authorities, the mayor at the time said, "Oh, nothing to worry about. There's no killer out there."
Go ahead and say what I think you're about to say.
Because she'd been told by the police that
your friends. This is what you're about to say. Your friends. You're saying that your friends told you to get on TV and sort of absolve Boulder of this crazy theory. Tell them how safe Boulder is. But you guys jumped on television and did the exact opposite.
Us parents, we know it's parents. We just got to prove it. And it was weird. It was weird. But that we shouldn't have been doing an interview like that.
What did your lawyers say when they because did they just see you on TV one day? Because I think that's the thing. People would be like, I don't understand. Like, John's a smart guy. He's consulting his lawyers for everything. How does his lawyers not know he's going on CNN?
At that time, we'd been introduced to our lawyer.
The same way that John didn't know that Burke was going to go on Dr. Phil and exclaim to the world that he had ran back downstairs that night to play with his toys, and John didn't have an answer for it.
Lawyers, but we then immediately flew back to Atlanta for JonBenet's funeral. We had not met with our lawyers.
Oh, okay.
It was a horrible mistake for several reasons. One, we were in no shape to do an interview. There's no point in doing an interview other than to satisfy our friends who are pressuring us to show us.
Why did they want you on TV so bad? Like that's a part that never made sense.
Well, they were concerned that the media was instantly piling on us as the killers, and that was horribly wrong, and you need to show yourself and defend yourself.
Why are your friends I appreciate that they care for you, but it's just like...
Well, they don't know. They weren't any more expert at it than we were. And so we just reluctantly agreed to do it. But in retrospect, that's shouldn't have happened. And our attorneys, well, in fact, from that point on, our attorneys said, "No, we are not going to respond to the media accusations. You're not going to respond to them. We're going to defend you." In fact, they said, "Look, we will guarantee you one thing, money back guarantee, we'll destroy him in court. This will be a cakewalk if it gets to that point." But they said, "We can't practice law in front of a CNN camera. That's not our job. We don't know how to do that." And they were frustrated by that because we were being accused in the court of public opinion, but they couldn't respond.
Because there seems like there was this huge rift that I've not seen in such a stark way. I've seen it happen before, but between the DA's office and the police. And it's and you had lawyers who I think knew, they knew the DA, kind of grew up with them, worked with them. So I think that you guys obviously had an amicable relationship. They're the one you eventually go and talk to.
Right. I don't know. What I was told, the police are like, "Oh, we know who did it. Go arrest him and prosecute him." And the DA says, "Well, show me the evidence." "Well, we don't have that much evidence. We just know they did it." And so the DA wouldn't charge him. And the police took that as an offense. And apparently that happened a lot. That happened in our case.
I feel like there was like this circle where it was a lot of that, where I kept hearing like the DAs like get the evidence. The police would say, and I don't know what's true, the police would say, we're trying to get the evidence, but you're stalling us.
Right. Well,
Like,
that's kind of what.
Do you feel like that? Like, and I don't know what advice you were getting or what was happening, but I do see moments where there are certain things where I think like phone records, like the police say they don't have phone records until like a year later.
Oh no, we gave them everything they asked for when they asked for it. Early on, we gave them phone records, we gave them credit card records, full access to our bank accounts, everything they asked for. The only thing they asked for a year later, which they should have asked for in the beginning, was our clothing that we were wearing that morning, because they found unidentified fibers, hairs that were not identified. A year later, somebody said, "Oh, you should have asked for their clothing." Well, they finally did, and we had to show us a picture. I don't even remember what we were wearing. But we gave them everything they asked for, when they asked for it. Handwriting samples. We had to write that horrible note right-handed and left-handed. So they had samples of our handwriting, which didn't match. So they wanted to arrest us on probable cause. They probably did this, so let's arrest them and beat a confession out of them. In fact, we were told by the DA 2 things later, years later. The whole police case was based on they didn't think we acted right that morning. And the strategy to solve the case was to bring intense pressure on Patsy and I so the innocent one would confess.
What did they mean by you didn't act right? So like, what were the things that were bothering you?
That's the interesting thing. I read that there was one detective there, this woman, who, I don't know if she'd ever investigated a murder or not, probably.
Linda Arndt, yeah. Because she came when it was still a kidnapping, right?
Yeah. They went to the sheriff's office, got a book on how to deal with kidnapping. They didn't know.
Oh, he's trying to be funny. That's what that is. He's trying to be funny. There is this one woman. You trying to be funny is what you're doing. Okay.
And I read her report much later, and it was just nuts. But the things that she observed would say, yeah, that's not what you'd expect because of the way she wrote it. For example, she said, I observed him going casually through the mail, waiting for this phone call from the kidnapper. I was looking for another communication for the kidnapper. We had a pile of...
Bro, you talking about like one thing. Like Linda's report, her police report is like 19 pages. I haven't read through the whole thing, and I'm going to. But her report is like 19 pages. And Linda started off hot. She started off with the basics. The same way, I would say, as I think Officer French's report is like 4 or 5 pages. Linda's was 19. And I think she was much more descriptive of everything that happened. But what Linda did not know, or she wasn't there for, she reported from her peers. So when she got on, she said, hey, when I got to the scene, well, first of all, I was doing this or that, and I was called at this time, so I made it to the scene at this time, and when I got to the scene, this is what I brought with me, and these are the people who I talked to at the scene, and this is what we talked about. And she put those excerpts in her report. So she was, to my knowledge so far, just trying to be thorough. What are you talking about, dude? You act like she just sat down and started writing random stuff. She's a detective, John. What do you expect her to do? If she's not observing, see, that's your problem right there. It's a crime for her to observe the setting, John. What else would she be doing? She's there to look around, pick up things, turn things over and say, this is what we observed at the scene. This is what we found. That's what she's there to do. They act like they don't have a fundamental understanding of what the cops are supposed to be doing when it comes to them. That privileged behavior.
Mail that had come through the front door slot laying on the floor. I was going through it to see if there's anything else from the kidnapper. She should have been doing that. But she interpreted it as casually going through the mail.
How could she do that, John, if y'all hid stuff from her? How could she do that, John, when they weren't allowed to go into... You had a wooden latch at the top of the wine cellar. Fleet White said he went in and didn't see anything. Said it was so dark. Somehow, some way, though, you went in there and saw it immediately. Because it wasn't, JonBenet wasn't laying that far from the entrance. It wasn't that dark to where you couldn't see a white sheet. She's doing what she's supposed to do, bro.
While waiting for a call to come in. She also said 10 o'clock came and went. John didn't go nuts because we didn't get a call. The note said, I will call you at 10 o'clock tomorrow. I didn't know if tomorrow was tomorrow or the day we were in. So when 10 o'clock came and went, I thought, oh my God, I got to wait another 24 hours for this call to come. So it wasn't a big surprise that he didn't call because it said tomorrow in the note. What was the other thing? It was just nuts. Oh, when he found JonBenet, he didn't cry. There was no tears. People react differently to trauma, but when I lost my daughter Beth in a car accident, JonBenet's older sister, I was mad. I didn't cry. I was mad. I was mad. Why did this happen? I was mad at God. With Beth, and then with JonBenet, it was, and what I guess they didn't understand was when they're making these observations of our behavior. When I lost Beth, I got a call. It was over. I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't get her to the best medical treatment. I couldn't go by her side and comfort her. It was over. It was done. She was gone. With JonBenet, it wasn't over. I could get her back, and I really thought I would, but I had to keep my wits about me, and I had to keep my head together and do whatever I could possibly do, not knowing what to do.
Which is actually how I think I would respond to a traumatic situation, is I'm very like jump in and act.
Yeah.
The thing that I think other people don't understand, that this is the one that was hard for me, is like it's said over and over by Linda Arndt that you and Patsy are just like completely separated. What was your interpretation?
Patsy was literally sitting on the floor with a big bowl in front of her, ready to throw up. Mm-hmm. Quite honestly, she was devastated. And so she was over there. That's fine. That's okay. I was focused on trying to get JonBenet back. Mm-hmm. How do I get the money together? He wanted $118,000 in an attaché case. How do I get the cash together? I was working on that. I got to get my daughter back. That was my focus. Patsy's okay. She's
got friends around her.
She had friends around her. I got to get my daughter back.
That was the other thing. Linda says in her interpretation of things that you disappear for an hour.
That's not true.
Yeah.
No. I was looking out the window occasionally to see if I could see anything. But no, I didn't disappear for an hour. Linda Arndt was nuts. She, on national television, said, well, I knew he was guilty because I saw it in his eyes. I thought, well, that's quite a talent. But she was way in over her head and I don't think she was playing with a full deck.
Aside from that first day, did you ever do other interviews with her or have much interaction with her?
None. That's okay. I was focused on they're making these observations of our behavior. When I lost Beth, I got a call. It was over. I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't get her to the best medical treatment. I couldn't go by her side and comfort her. It was over. It was done. She was gone. With JonBenet, it wasn't over. I could get her back, and I really thought I would, but I had to keep my wits about me, and I had to keep my head together and do whatever I could possibly do, not knowing what to do.
Which is actually how I think I would respond to a traumatic situation.
Detectives told you when you brought her upstairs that she was dead.
as I'm very like jump in and act.
Yeah.
The thing that I think other like people don't understand that this is the one that was hard for me is like it's said over and over by Linda Arndt that you and Patsy are just like completely separated. What was your interpretation?
Patsy was literally sitting on the floor with a big bowl in front of her, ready to throw up. Mm-hmm. Quite honestly, she was devastated. And so she was over there. That's fine. That's okay. I was focused on trying to get JonBenet back. Mm-hmm. How do I get the money together? He wanted $118,000 in an attaché case. How do I get the cash together? I was working on that. I got to get my daughter back. That was my focus. Patsy's okay. She's
got friends around her.
She had friends.
These are not complete stories. These are not complete stories that you're giving me. These are very, well, I don't know where we are. Like, what are we even talking about right now? You're not giving me complete stories that are at least somewhat comprehensive of what actually happened during those very critical moments. You're just saying something, expecting us to take your word for it, and then just dismissing it. I was upstairs looking out the window. For what? Did you see anything? Did you find anything? What take us down that rabbit hole. Take us, at least indulge us for 1 to 2 minutes about what you saw. But you just, I was looking out the window. You were looking out the window? And John, where were you looking out the window that no one could find you? That the detective, where exactly were you looking out the window that no one could find you for an hour and a half? An hour and a half for you to be gone is noticeable. And number one, number two, you were so certain that Patsy was fine that you didn't come back to check on your wife who had also lost a child? Why would you want to be away from your wife? Did you tell Patsy, hey, babe, I'm going to look out the window, try to see if I can't see anything? Maybe. And when I assume what he means by that is that he went to go see if the kidnappers were watching them, because I think Patsy said something to the effect of seeing an unmarked car outside or something like that. But when Detective Arndt showed up to the scene, she gave them a copy of the ransom note. And
around her, I got to get my daughter back.
That was the other thing. Linda says in her interpretation of things that you disappear for an hour.
That's not true.
Yeah.
No. I was looking out the window occasionally to see if I could see anything. But no, I didn't disappear for an hour. Linda.
That's what I was going to say. In her report, she mentioned how she had, put the wire on John and said, hey, we're gonna wire up the phone. Let's test it out so that you know how this is going to go. So when the time comes, and this wasn't just the opinion of Detective Arndt, this was the opinion of all of the cops, like 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock came and went, because there was a time frame. 8 to 10 o'clock came and went, and there was no call. All of the detectives thought it was going to be on that day. But somehow you were on a different page, thinking that it was going to be the next day. Again, there's this like disconnect between you and the police. You're always thinking something way different than what the police are thinking. But the police are on the same page. Kind of confused about that. And Detective Arndt, I'm sure, spoke with you, as she mentioned in her report. I spoke with him and told him we were rigging up the house to tap. We were tapping the phone to make sure that we could, catch the kidnappers when they called in. And then after it happened, you just get up and walk away. Well, John, we gotta regroup and what's going on here. This guy said that they were going to call. They haven't called. Is there something that we're missing? You just got up and walked away. why didn't you stay to debrief?
Arndt was nuts. She, on national television, said, well, I knew he was guilty because I saw it in his eyes. I thought, well, that's quite a talent. But she was way in over her head.
But could you tell me something that legitimizes why you think she's way in over her head? For example, all of these baseless accusations that you're throwing out against people, they need to be followed with examples. Linda Arndt is a nutcase. She went out there and she said this about me, but the entire time I showed her the report. I showed her that I went over to Linda and I showed her the mail that I was looking at. And I said to her, I said, Linda, do you think that this could be something that first of all, why would Linda have any reason to believe that there would be anything from the kidnapper in the mail when the kidnapper was sleuthy enough to sneak into your house and put it on your doorstep? Be reasonable. Why would she think that when you told them this man outsmarted me when my house was locked? He outsmarted me and found the only window that was an access point but was hidden by a vent. Beginner's luck that he found that window and snuck in, outsmarted us all. Stood there and watched me and my son put together a train set, and then waited till I walked upstairs and went to sleep and snuck up right under my nose and took my daughter. That ninja of a kidnapper, that type of sleuthy person, that Houdini, all of a sudden would need to leave something in a mailbox, as he's clearly shown the propensity to sneak right in under your nose and take your whole child. So why would Detective Arndt think that you were looking at something from, the kidnapper, unless you turned around and said, hey, detective, I think I see something here. What do you think?
And I don't think she's playing with a full deck.
Aside from that first day, did you ever do other interviews with her or have much interaction with her?
None.
Did her and Patsy end up having a relationship with her?
Well, she was our savior. I mean, she came to help us. You call the police, you expect them to come to help. Yeah. We trusted her initially before we'd seen this report, all these crazy observations. And so she was kind of our policeman personified. Detective. We didn't know any of these other people that had come involved from the police department, but Linda was there that morning when we had this horrible tragedy in our lives. So it's kind of a bonding in a way.
So did they, even after that, her and Patsy had conversations afterwards?
They had a few.
Okay, yeah. I've heard that, but I didn't know. Yeah. It seemed like you guys had such a bad experience with her that I was surprised.
Well, at the time, we didn't know it was a bad experience. Mm. You call the police, you think they know what they're doing. And that's, you trust them totally to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And
did Patsy ever tell you what they talked about? Because I think that's a big mystery to people. Is why did she?
I can't remember. It's been so long ago. But Patsy wanted to know who killed her daughter, and what are you doing? What's going on? That was the kind of the level of conversation. I'm pretty sure.
Gary Oliva, did you want to talk about him?
Oh, yeah. He was the lead that the DA gave us, and said the police won't follow up on this properly, but it's a significant lead.
And it was back in the day. I remember reading his name
early on.
In the interviews you guys did back in 98 when they were like, do you recognize this name? Do you recognize this name?
Yeah.
And Gary Oliva was on there.
Yeah. And say the circumstantially is very compelling. I know our guys looked at it, our investigators, and kind of confirmed the circumstantial information that was given to us and turned it over to the police. My memory is that they interviewed him, but kind of blew it off. I don't know if they did DNA testing, handwriting samples.
I've seen some handwriting recently, more recently. I don't know if they just recently got collected, they're bringing it up again, but I've seen some handwriting samples that look promising. But I also think that handwriting 30 years later now, people look at it sometimes the way they do with like bite.
You know that they did handwriting analysis on Gary. They pulled enough to say whether or not this is him. Outside experts did that. There is analysis on Gary. You know that. Why are you playing? They didn't think it was him based on that analysis. And they didn't believe his story checked out, much like John Mark Carr.
Mark, which is like kind of junk science. So I don't
well, yeah, know. It's not admissible in court.
Yeah, and so I don't even know if they would, the way that they felt so strongly about Patsy in 1996. I don't know that anyone would feel that way now if we.
Well, again, if it was wrong to feel that way back then. Because she was a 4.5 out of 5, which is pretty much no way. But
I think it was because it was her notepad pen from to your point.
No, it wasn't. They pinned her to be the person who wrote it. What are you talking about? It's just like this alternate reality. That's what I'm saying. Just be honest about what happened. Be honest and say there were some people who thought she did it, some people who didn't. I don't know who you're quoting, but you're quoting like 1 or 2 people that were probably from your investigation that said we didn't do it. That's just like y'all taking a lie detector test and getting an inconclusive report. But on the first time, but then on the second time, being asked the same questions. And then being like, and passing and be like, we passed. Okay. How many times did it take you to pass? Because the first one was the New York Post wrote a piece that said that the Ramseys try again and they pass the test. Come on, man. This is the article that I was talking about. Anyways, back to the analysis.
It's pretty much no way, but
I think it was because it was her notepad pen from to your point. It was like,
well, again, yeah, but so it was in the house, and the person was in the house before we were, and none of that. It was her paintbrush. That was okay. Sorry, we didn't have the paintbrush locked up.
Yeah, it seems like there were these like cultural shifts. I think there was like that distinct moment in 2016 when everyone started looking at Burke, and that's become like the big story now.
That's absolutely insane.
Will you let her finish her line of thought before you cut her off? And can she explain why she's saying that people are saying that? Can we get that off before you? Okay.
Burke was a 60-pound, 9-year-old little boy. This was a violent assault. It's just even the police immediately said no. But he was interviewed by a child psychologist, which I guess is normal, for 2 days early on, and they said no, absolutely no way. He wasn't aware of anything that happened, and certainly wasn't the killer. And so that's just absurd foolishness.
What was your thinking that morning when you're getting him out of the home? Because I know you guys go to check on him. You think he's still sleeping. He says when he does his Dr. Phil that he's awake, but he's clearly there's something going on. He's like, I'm not messing with it. I'm like waiting till they come and get me. Why did you guys want him to not be in that environment?
Well, the police were there. It was craziness. He was a little boy. We wanted him safe and protected.
And again, you guys said that he was asleep. Burke has told y'all on a couple occasions that he was in there awake. He said, my parents thought I was asleep. That's what was written in the report, in Officer French's report, that y'all said he was asleep. But Burke was like, nah, I'm awake. Listening to what y'all saying. Cop came in and flashed his flashlight in my face. I wasn't asleep. I was awake. Come on, man. Talk to me.
and he took some of his Christmas presents with him and went to stay with a friend in his house. It was a way to get him out of this nightmare into a safe place.
Did you guys feel like he was safe? Like, I think that was it hard? Because I think it would be hard for me to I'm missing one child. Like, I don't know if you could get me to let go of the other one.
Yeah, well, no, we trusted our friends. They were good friends. Their son was Burke's age. They were buddies. They'd been friends for a long time. It was a safe place for him to go.
Because Fleet took him away, but then Fleet comes back, right? Were his in-laws or something at the house? So there was like someone there with the kids? 30 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. It was chaos that morning, and I really thought I could get JonBenet back. I really did. But I'd never dealt with that, or.
I didn't ask you this. I didn't ask you that. He looked, when he went like that, and he took in a big he just like inhaled very deeply. It almost looked like he was going to add more commentary about Fleet White, and he was going to go down that road, but then he thought better of it and just didn't do it.
John Douglas, who's probably the premier crime profiler, started that whole FBI program, crime profiling. We spent some time with him over a period of time, and his profile of this was that this was a fairly young person, 20s to 30s, fascinated with movies because there's some movie quotes in the ransom note, and it was either very angry at you personally, John, or very jealous of you, John. This wasn't about JonBenet. That's John's assessment.
And do you still believe that?
I think that's part of it. I really do. But whoever did this is a monster.
Do you believe that you're the why?
I accept John Douglas's theory as credible. I really do.
Yeah.
2 weeks before her murder, our company had achieved $1 billion in sales for the year.
Right.
And for us, that was a big deal. And I wasn't even paying attention. And our financial guy said, "Hey, we're going to hit $1 billion." It's like, holy mackerel, we need to have a party for our employees and make a big deal of it. And our marketing lady said, let's let the newspaper know. And I had this gut feeling, another lesson, pay attention to your gut feelings. I had this gut feeling, that's a bad idea. But I let him do it. And
why does, like, if it was about the money and like your greed and going back to a lot of things the note said, what do you think the way that they this and the way that they staged it, like why that piece of it? If it goes back to being about you and about money, like that.
I know it doesn't make sense. I agree. No, well, whoever did this is, crazy, demented human being.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't make a lot of it. I don't know.
I know you guys have been extremely clear that there was no abuse on your part, any family member's part.
Our doctors can testify to that.
Well, that was my question. So I know that you guys have been clear. Do you think that she wasn't abused by anyone ever, even if there's
we don't know that for a fact. No, we don't. I mean, we never suspected that, but we don't know that.
Yeah, but most people don't, right? Like no. But it's 1 in 5 girls are assaulted.
Yeah. We don't know for sure.
Did they ever look into, knowing John Douglas's profile? I know he said 20 to 30, but his profile of this being a young, really unsophisticated person, did they take a really hard look at like the other kids in the neighborhood?
No, they never did any neighborhood survey. They never went door to door, which is a huge mistake. What's
so wild to me is like they like the first officer, French, I think was his name, he goes to the room that JonBenét's found. He just doesn't open the door. It's latched. So he's like, no, thank you.
Right.
How does Fleet White open the door and not see it?
I don't know. If that's true, that's a huge red flag. She was right there. I mean,
because like the second you open the door, you see the white
microsecond.
Doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't. And that's, again, you don't know if that's fiction or fact. There's so much fiction that was put out by the police.
So I know you guys don't have much of a relationship now, but like, are those some of the questions, like the hard questions that like, I mean, again, I think this is my friend that I'm going to be like in their face. Tell me how this makes sense.
What I think happened, first of all, I think the police took Fleet away from the home we were in that morning or the day after. And he came back after a couple hours and was different. I think the police were leveraging Fleet to use him. We have evidence that the family killed JonBenet, and you need to help us here. And I don't know, but they said he was different when he came back from meeting with the police for 2 hours.
Because you guys have like a huge falling out, right?
Well, it was just because it was bizarre. I mean, he came back to Atlanta to attend the funeral, and we made arrangements for our Boulder friends to stay with Atlanta friends in their homes. And our friends that we had that person stay with they didn't call us, but they called somebody that was helping us and say, we want him out of our house. He's bizarre, something screwy. And so we put him with my brother.
Mm-hmm.
My brother called me a day or so later and said, do you have a gun in the house? And I said, no. Well, Fleet is on his way to your house. We were with Patsy's parents. Something's wrong. And
what was he saying? For your brother to say, do you have a gun? That's scary.
How do we know that this ain't fiction, John? How do we know that this isn't fiction? How do we know that? Because you hurl accusations against people. How do we know that this isn't fiction? Number one. Number two, how long exactly was everybody down there for the funeral? I would think that Fleet would have been gone in a day or two. Like, man, I'm here the day before the funeral. I'm gonna fly in, attend the funeral and stay here for a day to get packed up and see the city and make sure you guys are okay. But I got to get back to work. And I got to, take care of business and try to tend to the home in Boulder. I can't stay down here. Can check and make sure you guys are okay here in Atlanta. But me and Priscilla got to get back to Boulder and keep the lights on, keep working. Because I think at this time, Fleet also has a company to run. Right? So I don't understand these, and it's really weird. It's really weird because as fast as you say you saw the body, a detective walked up to the door, didn't see it, didn't even open it. Why not? And I saw some of the search warrants, and I need to go read them and stuff like that. I need to read them more in depth about the search warrants and stuff like that. But for an officer to walk up to a door, I have not known any officer that would walk up to a door and be like, no, this is not a challenge at all. I don't even want to open this door. I don't know of an officer that would do that. The officer's job is to clear that room. And from what I can tell in French's report, he had every intent to clear that crime scene and make sure that they did what they needed to do. Even when we talk about, who is that? Whitson? I think Bob Whitson, and they were kind of saying, look, man, we're just trying to clear the scene. We went, and I think he said he went in JonBenet's room, looked around, took a look and said, hey, we need to shut this off, close this off to everybody so that, nobody comes in here and contaminates anything in this room. So we understand from his report, and I think that was in his report, we understand from his report and Officer French's report that they had every intent to do the right thing as they were supposed to do as police. But somehow, some way, on certain the most critical parts, they decided not to be cops. How? In some of the most critical parts, they were sloppy. But then in other parts, they were the perfect detective. How? All three of them? Because this goes beyond Linda Arndt. Now we're talking about the entire police department just decided. I can understand that you said, look, man, we only have one crime a year in Boulder of this magnitude, and this is it. But they just decided to stop being cops. All of them? That's why you have a team show up so what one person forgets, the others don't. And they had several cops on the scene as Linda Arndt's report shows, discussing everything that was going on. And that's how Officer French can say, hey, this went from a kidnapping to a homicide. So they would switch over to looking at it at a homicides case. I had a question about whether or not they called the FBI, since we know that this is a possible act of terrorism. They called the FBI and said, what do we do? This is a kidnapping. We need to know what to do. And then the FBI started to want to get involved and say, you know what, we need to look at the family. You know, we need the body's been found. We need to look at the family. But then in the most critical points, when it comes to right when it comes to where the body is, as you say, he just decides not to open it. Or he didn't know that there was a latch up there, because it was reported that Fleet went down looking in the basement because his daughter had gone missing, but it turned out that she was hiding under the bed. And so what Fleet's intent was to go around looking for common places for kids to hide. And so he checked there, but didn't see anything. Blind Fleet. Good old blind Fleet. Couldn't find the light switch. But you go down there and you don't even need the light switch. You see it immediately. Fleet had on glasses. You didn't have any glasses on. Still pitch dark. Two people just passed it up? I'm confused.
My brother's as passive a person you ever want to meet.
So what does he say when he gets to you? Because I know in Patsy's deposition, she's like, I don't know, I was in the basement, like I'm not part of that conversation. Yeah. And it seems like she never asked you. But like, what is that conversation?
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember.
And then he comes one more time when you're back in Colorado, like comes at you kind of again, like interrupts the meeting with you.
We were with our priest or minister, and he barged in, and I think it was just a hugely, at best, it was a hugely upsetting thing for Fleet to be in the periphery of all this.
At worst?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd been with him a lot, and I have no doubt that the police used him. Probably said, well, John thinks you killed his daughter and you got to work with us here. Don't know that for a fact, but I wouldn't be surprised. I had, Fleet and I used to sail. Fleet was a really expert sailor, and I was not. And I bought the sailboat.
Were you in the Navy?
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's irrelevant.
Sure.
I think it was a sail.
That's the exact thought that came to my mind. I was like, you were in the Navy, my guy. Oh, that doesn't matter. Oh. You don't deal with boats at all. Knows nothing. So we have a Navy man who apparently wanted to be in the Air Force. Got it. Makes sense.
You know, I don't know, this a couple of years later, I sent it back to him with the note and said, look, I don't know what the police told you. I'm sure they've probably told you things that weren't true, but I absolutely don't think you were involved in our daughter's murder. And I never heard back from him, but I knew him. I knew him well. I knew his kids.
How do you not go shake it out? Like, this is the part that so hard to understand, and I understand why people spiral. And then his wife, I heard, was telling Patsy, like, I need a couple minutes. I might know something, but I'm just like, God, is there something in there? How do you feel you have to, like, what is it that like makes you not be the Fleet who's like holding onto people's collars?
Yeah. I've told people, look, if you were a male living in Boulder on the 26th or 25th of December, 1996, you're a suspect in my book. I can't rule you out. I don't know. I'm so suspicious and frightened and bewildered. You're a suspect in my book. I don't trust you.
What was the deal with the 23rd 911 call? And my favorite character, Fleet White.
Yeah, there's weird stuff like that. What was the deal? Somehow he dialed 911 from our home phone and meant to dial something else. I can't remember. don't remember if the police came or they just called us back. But we said, no, that was a mistake, I guess.
Did you ever ask him about it?
Ask Fleet?
Yeah.
No. Early on, I was just so crushed.
There is a lot and has been going on for the past, I'd say 30 to 45 minutes. I'd say, yeah, for about 30 minutes or more. When we got beyond the, formalities, and she started with those first couple of questions, we've been walking on eggshells ever since. This interview has not been the same since. We have gone into a place where we're now in very tensed up, uncertain territory for the interviewer, because she's watching what she says, but nothing emotionally here to me, nothing emotional is landing. Like, for example, what I mean from the interviewee, from the interviewee, nothing. And when I say that, let me just be clear. Ashley is kind of walking on eggshells. She's watching what she's saying in order to kind of continue to pull this information out. But John is now tensed up. We can't get him back to that happy place that he was when he was describing JonBenet and Patsy and stuff like that. We are in a very closed off and restricted place. And John, his answers are very short and concise. He's not explaining anything. He's doing a bunch of I don't knows. Now he's saying, I don't know. I just don't. It was bizarre. It was crazy. Yeah, it was bizarre. And he's taking what Ashley is saying at times. It was crazy. It was weird, right? Yeah, it was weird. And he'll leave it at that. You going to elaborate? A normal person would be elaborating. Man, that was weird because, man, and this thing about it, Fleet was a good friend to me, and it was just it sucked that it fell apart like this because and I'll tell you, man, I tried to reach out to Fleet, and I tried to reach out to him 3 times. I have the letters at home that I tried to reach out to him, and he just would not answer me. We talked to him. We talked at the funeral, and I said, look, man, tell me your grievances, and he said this and that, and we had I'll be honest, we had a strong disagreement on that because I felt this way and he felt this way. And after that, we just parted ways. He has not given us a solid reason why he and Fleet parted ways. Not a solid one. Other than, hey, man, people start to think that Fleet is crazy. And it's just like, yeah, but that's your friend, that's your boy, right? You guys met up, you guys had the same thing in common. Like, what happened? And you're just, resolved to say, yeah, he just went crazy. He just, the cops got to him. And after the cops got to him, he was never the same. So, yeah, I don't know. What happened, John? That's your boy. How could your boy flip on you so fast? What did they show him or tell him that he flipped on you, that he could be turned so fast that, look, this is what I'm saying. Let's make an example. Fleet was your boy, right? Y'all had almost everything in common. Patsy and Priscilla hang out all the time, right? You're going over his house the night before you're supposed to fly out of town, right? That's your boy. Especially on Christmas Day. That's your boy. You guys are having some random party. God knows what. Probably just friends getting together. You know how it is. Someone from your job calls and said, hey, they on your trail. You better get a lawyer. Whoever that was nice enough to do that for you. But somebody that is your close friend, your ace, all of a sudden is easily flipped by the cops. What did they say to him that made him flip in a matter of 2 hours? What would they have said? What evidence did they have that would have made him flip in a matter of a couple hours? What was that? We need to be looking into that. We need to understand more of that from your perspective. You got to be able, this was your boy, because you should be able to say, well, Fleet gets this way, Fleet gets that. But you don't give us anything. So For the longest time in this interview, we've not been on solid ground.
I wished I would die.
And he keeps on folding his arms, leaning back to protect himself. I think.
I was that hurt. People said, did you think about it? Well, it crossed my mind, but that would impose more hurt on my children, and that's a dumb thing to do. But I would have been happy to die. I was so devastated. So you don't think about much else, I guess, other than your loss. And, as I say, the fleet stuff was weird, but it didn't fit with who I knew as a person. I remember he didn't react well under stress.
I remember reading this anecdote you had about a sailing with him and how he just kind of like froze and you guys had to come get saved by someone.
Well, we got into really rough weather and a line that got wrapped around our propeller as we were coming to port. We couldn't steer the boat and we were getting blown into a big rock wall and the weather was blowing like crazy and we're like, okay, this is the end of the sailboat, we're not going to get killed, but that's going to be the end of the boat. It crashes into that stone wall. And so he just acted very flustered and overwhelmed by difficulty. And so I sort of attributed some of his behavior to that. I don't know.
I know. I think I would just bulldoze through my life. I would probably ruin every relationship I had. Like truly, like it's something I think.
That was a terrible example. They ain't got nothing to do with nothing. The propeller was wrapped up. And we were in crazy weather. I imagine things knocking up against the boat. That's that the third. My propeller is restricted. Well, how do I turn the boat and steer the boat and get us out of this weather? I would think that would be a reason for us to be flustered. Why are you acting like you just stood there and was like, oh, fleet, we have plenty of options. Like what, John? What will we be doing? I can't move the boat. What will we be doing? And when we're in this kind of weather, we could go down. This boat could be overtaken and overran with water, and we could go down. What will we be doing? Of course, I'd be flustered. That's a terrible example. Talking about. It's not flustered because people come to him and say, that's a reasonable reason to be flustered. Of course. But if somebody comes and says, hey, man, here's what we're thinking about your friend, John. This is the evidence that we have. Will you help us kind of talk to him and see what he says? And it could have been the case that as the cops came and said, will you help us talk to him? Because right now he's in a very vulnerable state. Can you help us kind of get an in track on him? That may have been what Fleet was trying to do. And some of your behaviors as he tried to get you to, kowtow to that. Hey, maybe we should go talk to the police. You, as you say, you don't remember. So it could have been the case that you just don't remember flipping out on him and be like, how dare you ask me to talk to cops? You think I did this? And you could have done that. And they said, you know what? No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to Atlanta. Forget you and everybody else. Could have done that.
I think it would consume me because I think I would pick apart, and maybe these are the people who can survive it and the people who can't, because I think I would hunt down Fleet White and I would you know what I mean? And I would I would pick it apart, even if it was my own child and probably to the detriment of my child. And I think that's what so many people, we think we know what we're going to do in those situations.
Well, but you can't assume that. I mean, it's like getting hit by a speeding truck. It's so devastating emotionally. Your system's in shock. I mean,
have you had different theories over the 30 years or has it been pretty much the same, or did it? I
mean, John Douglas's theory when he presented that to me was sobering. It's like,
who hates you that much? Like that.
Well, that's what I said to John. I said, we had 700 employees. I knew most of them, but not all of them. We've had to fire some for different reasons. But since I was the president, I guess conceivably they could blame me for the loss of their job, let's say. But I said, I've never made anybody that mad. I can't imagine that. And he said, you may not even know him. They read about
That wouldn't be against you. That would have been toward whatever boss or HR, because if you have 500 employees, it's likely that you have several levels of managers. That's just going to be the structure of the corporation. This is probably not going to be a corporation that's a free for all and anybody can just walk. With 500 employees, you're not going to have people just walking into the CEO's office and be like, "Hey, John, trying to shoot in the breeze, see what you're up to." You're not going to have that. And most likely with you being gone and traveling, you're not going to be there. So it's not going to be an open access or open door policy like that. I know CEOs say that, but it's not going to be an open door policy like that. Many times you're going to show up to the CEO's door and they might be able to talk to you for a couple seconds, but not enough to and you're going to be able to show a good face and be like, "Hey, yeah." And you're like, "Oh, CEO's a nice guy. This and that and the third. He's very busy, but he's a nice guy." That's probably going to be the extent of that. So this has to be, if it's going to be any employee, it's going to have to be somebody that would be disgruntled. It's going to have to be somebody that had a direct line of, this John Ramsey guy is a jerk. He specifically fired me, or he specifically told someone to fire me. Again, it would have to be somebody close, would have to be somebody on the executive team of some sort, whether they're a senior level executive, or a chief executive. They're going to have to be on that executive track to have that sort of relationship with you, to where there is reason to believe that you directly said, "I don't like that guy. That guy is bad for business. Get him out of here." That's what it would have to be. You're not going to have some janitor who probably never sees you and maybe on some occasion when you're walking out and saying happy holidays to him, or some cafeteria lady, or some lower level accountant. These are lower level employees that are closer to the bottom of the company. They're not going to see you. Even, dare I say, it's going to be an honor at 500 people. It's going to be an honor, because I have seen it. It's going to be an honor for a mid-level manager to see the CEO. "Oh my God, the CEO came and talked to us today. He was so inspiring." But it's not going to be, it's going to be the very small 10 to 15 people that are in there. The rest of the company is not going to see you. So even they probably, I don't know if they had this back in that time. You have what do you call them now? The HR specialists who recruiters. I don't even know if they had recruiters then. Recruiting people and getting to work for the company. It would have had to be the chief human resource officer up there and their right-hand person, to have that kind of relationship to where they would have believed that John Ramsey, fired me directly. And for them to believe that John Ramsey, they would have to fire them directly, would have had to be a reason like, this guy is committing fraud, or this guy is not, he's not, picking up things for the business. It would not be anybody outside of that. And so let me rephrase what I said earlier. It would be dang near the entire company. Should I say 90% of the company would not be interacting with you like that, for you to be that, dare I say 95% would not be interacting with you like that, for you to call the shot. And so therefore we wouldn't know it. It wouldn't be anybody except for somebody like a Jeff Merrick, which you called him out. So you clearly know somebody who would have been disgruntled, because you had the cops look at Jeff Merrick like 2 or 3 times.
about the paper. They observed your, we were, Boulder's a very liberal, far left community.
Right.
And
What does that mean?
well, very, it's described jokingly as 32 square miles surrounded by reality. And we knew that going in. We were capitalists. We were businesses, capitalists. They're not really welcome here. It was this feeling we got. But
I don't know how I actually felt about that. I don't know how I actually felt about that. She's kind of looking like, funny.
And
John had to get himself out of that one. He tried.
who could do this to a child? But anyway, John has lots of credit on his resume to being right.
Between him and your PIs, have you over the years come to at least your best working theory of what you think happened, like the order, what was staged?
Oh, I think the person came into our home when we were gone that evening, went out for dinner, was there when we got home, and waited for us to go to bed. That same scenario happened about 9 months later in the same neighborhood with a little friend of JonBenet's. Fortunately, the mother interrupted it. But to me, they're very potentially the same person. Police blew it off as the same. But I know the father of that second little girl absolutely felt there's a lot of similarities. They knew that the killer was in the house, or fortunately the child wasn't killed, but they came home, same that we did, set the burglar alarm, went to bed. So the killer the bad guy had to be in the house
waiting
when they got home.
So you think he's in the house waiting?
Mm-hmm.
And then what?
And then we went to bed, and we believe that, as to experts, that a stun gun was used to silence JonBenet. She was taken down the basement.
So you think that he went up to her room first, got her there?
Mm-hmm.
Lou Smith said something that was interesting, and I haven't been able to find any evidence for it, but he said that she was possibly subdued with a stun gun. I don't read anywhere where a stun gun would subdue a child or anyone. I read where a stun gun would shock a child, but to subdue and knock them out, very rarely I read. But I don't read anywhere to where that stun gun theory should be holding up to the point that they're trying to purport it here. I don't read that in any evidence. I was looking for it. If you know it, please correct me. But I don't read anywhere where a stun gun would have knocked somebody out. Furthermore, if this person had a stun gun so powerful, if this intruder had a stun gun so powerful that it could knock somebody out, JonBenet would have been knocked out. And at her waking back up, he could have just knocked her out again. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's easy. Because if we're going with the intruder theory and the kidnapping theory, then the entire point of using the stun gun was to get her out of the house. Why would he go left and go back to the wine cellar and be messing with her in there when he could just go right and go out of the window, which is where the entry point was? If they're such an expert at the house, he'd have just went up, picked her up, and came back down, hit her with the stun gun. She's knocked out. And in 30 seconds, man, the girl is 45 pounds. 4'11", I think 3'11" or something, 3'9", 3'11". Pick this little light girl up, man, and head downstairs, bro, and get out of the window. That's easy money. That's $118,000 right there. But all of a sudden, I diverted and went to the left for some strange amount of reason. Maybe because she woke up again. Okay, well, if she woke up again, hit her with the stun gun again, she's out for another 15, 20 seconds. I'm already halfway down the stairs. I came in, caught her by surprise, hit her with the stun gun. She's out for 15, 20 seconds. We're going down the stairs. She wakes up, trying to come to, doesn't know what's happening. Okay, we're out the door. Hit her again with the stun gun. Put her on the ground and climb out the window. Put her on the windowsill and climb out the window. She's up in 15 seconds. Hit her again. Another 15 seconds. Hit her again. We're out in the car. She could scream as loud as she wants to. That's what I'm saying. Come on, man.
And then took her to the basement?
Yeah.
And do you have any, and I know this is like a little bit of detail.
Why is she walking you through the theory? She asked you what your theory was. You should be telling us what the theory is. But this look right here.
That a stun gun was used to silence JonBenet. She was taken down the basement.
So you think that he went up to her room first, got her there?
Mm-hmm.
And then took her to the basement?
Yeah. That look tells me that there's some sort of uncertainty in his story when he's that's what they say. And now he's back to kind of pondering ideas. He's back on his arm, thinking and pondering and going back and walking through scenarios and theories. And so he's really not set up to tell you a full theory, right? He's set up to just be like, let's talk about it. What do you think happened? Whatever you say, I'm going to go with that. John will not tell you a full theory. He's just going to tell you, whatever you say, I'm going to go with that. He pulls in people's language a lot. Weird. Oh, man, that's crazy. It's unbelievable. But you haven't really said anything substantive.
And do you have any, and I know this is like a little bit of details I know you've lived with for a long time. Do they have any ideas about what the intention was? Like what some of the sexual activity, some of the choking was to cover something up?
Lou Smith, this detective that was retired, brought out of retirement, legendary detective in Colorado, solved over 200 homicides. Amazing man.
Yeah.
Was brought in by the DA because I think the DA suspected the police had it kind of messed up. Lou spent a couple months looking at the evidence and very conclusively, in his mind, said, no, there's lots of evidence of an intruder. His theory was it was a kidnapping gone wrong based on the evidence. And I've always thought those two conflicted between John Douglas's theory and Lou's, but somebody pointed out to me, well, no, they don't necessarily conflict. And it's like, yeah, you're right.
Do they think that the person wrote the note while that he's in the house?
No. Ashley, do not bail him out. Ask him his theory. Don't bail him out. Ask him. Elaborate on that. Let him elaborate.
Waiting for you guys to come home?
John Douglas said nobody could write a 3-page ransom note after murdering a child.
Okay, so that's done earlier.
Their warped brain is going crazy. And he said that note was written before.
Where do you assume it went wrong? So if he wrote this note to get her out, like why does he take her to the basement, you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
he takes her to the basement, John, because apparently he knows you so well that he knows that he's apparently been surveilling you since you've been under surveillance since last year. You know what I mean? This foreign faction knows you so well. So they set up surveillance since last summer. You know, as you say, you broke the window last summer. So, oh no, I did that. You're totally white. They've been surveilling you. You've been under surveillance since last summer. So they knew that you broke the window. I'm going to give you that benefit of the doubt. They knew you broke the window and they snuck in the window. So they come in and they take the little girl and they sneak. They're going back down to the basement because that's where the escape route is. It's that simple. I don't know why you're saying, I don't know. It's that simple. He was leaving.
She was assaulted, apparently. There was a suitcase. When the so-called detective that was there that day said, well, go look through the house, see if you see anything unusual. Mm-hmm. And I reported to her that I went to the basement. There was a suitcase standing up on its bottom under a window, and the window was open. I said, that suitcase shouldn't be there. It looks like it may have been a step to get out of the house. And apparently they found, and I don't know this for a fact, but there's so much information out there, you don't know what's right, what's wrong, but they apparently found fibers from JonBenet's clothing in the suitcase, along with a doll or something.
How come Fleet White didn't see the suitcase sitting right there? How come it took Fleet White so Fleet White went down. I'm saying like nobody's being thorough. Fleet White went down, looked in the basement, didn't see anything, looked in the wine cellar, didn't see anything. And then instead of going over to the window, he only noticed the window when he was with you. The body was only found when he was with you. So when he went over, he only went through, we had several rooms over there that JonBenet could have been hiding. Like we went through the laundry room and then the storage room behind the laundry room that JonBenet could have been hiding in. JonBenet could have been hiding through the train room and or the hobby room to the right and back in that storage where the window was cracked open. Fleet White, all that time that you guys had to observe the house, Fleet White definitely should have been able to walk to the left and try to go into the cellar, look into the cellar, not see anything. Come out, go into the washroom, go to the back, be like, I didn't find anything in the storage room back there. Go into the hobby room. I mean, I'm telling you, it's not a lot of work to do. You can clear that. Bro, you could clear that with a flashlight. And I don't know why y'all walking in places not turning on lights and not going to get in the flashlight. That doesn't make sense. Hey man, it's easy to come back and say, hey man, there's a room down here. You got a flashlight. I'm trying to check and see if there's anything. Can you help me find the light? Fleet White should have went back upstairs and said, hey John, there's this room that's dark. Do you have a flashlight so I can go look in the wine cellar? Hey, there's this other room that I found. It's a storage. I want to look around in there. Do you have a flashlight or help me turn it? Where were you? Because that's the first thing that he did when he got there. And then third of all, and lastly, I'm going to make on this point, when he runs in and he's like, boom, here is the hobby room and here's the window that he escaped in. Why did it take Fleet White being with you to observe that window was broken? How? That does not make sense. How was Fleet staying in one side of the basement and then waiting for you to go see this window that was clearly open and not seeing the suitcase down there? How? How is he missing that? It's impossible. The suitcase is right there. Bro, you gotta be kidding me.
And Lou's theory was they may have tried to get her out of the house in the suitcase. And it went wrong, and it didn't work. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
When you first saw the window, because you had gone down initially, but you said when you first saw the window, you didn't think to mention it.
No. I did immediately, yeah. Yeah, the window was open.
Uh-huh.
And it had a pane broken in it, and the suitcase propped up underneath. And I told Linda Arndt, the detective, I said, look, that suitcase should not be there.
And you told her this before you guys found JonBenet?
Yeah. I said, maybe that window was broken by me. I don't know, but it shouldn't have been open, and that suitcase shouldn't have been there. Mm. And
before you found JonBenet's body? I'm confused. Because it's my understanding that Linda wasn't familiar with the house and the layout to that point to where, and I'm not sure where you relayed this information to her, that I look, again, I'm reaching out to you guys. If you guys know, please help me. Where is the source that said that they had this conversation before he found JonBenet of, hey, there's a suitcase in front of this door that should not be there. From my understanding, he ran downstairs and he and Fleet saw the window broken. He turns around, walks around and says, hey, let's go check out this room over here. Boom, straight to it. Wine cellar. Here it is. Where in there, because you were gone for an hour and 30 minutes, before it, after the hour and 30 minutes, where in there did you tell Linda, hey, I've been down to, because I don't see that anywhere. I've never heard that story till now, that you and Linda had a conversation. And maybe I need to read further into the report that you and Linda had a conversation that, hey, there's something wrong with the suitcase. But it's also funny too now, right? Because if that did happen, let's assume it did. You said that, and apparently this is something that you've already done and you've gone back and reported to Linda. But Linda says, hey, you need to search this house from top to bottom. And the first thing that you do is you run back downstairs and you make a beeline. You go back to the window. I don't know why you did that. But you go back to the window and you say, well, again, there's nothing here. Like I thought last time, nothing here. Let's go somewhere else. And then you went and looked in the wine cellar. How does that make sense? Why would you go back? Oh, that was the first place. Logically, you had 15, 20 rooms in your home. Any one of those rooms where you would think that JonBenet would be would make sense, right? Is she under the bed? Is she in a closet in one of the rooms? Is she in the bathroom somewhere? I mean, she said from top to bottom. You could have ran to your room and checked in. It's like, man, well, I know she's not in my room because I just checked this morning. I know she's not in her room. I know she's not in Burke's room, but maybe she's in John Andrew's room. Maybe she's over here. Maybe she's over there. I can't find. Maybe she's in the garage. I don't know. That makes sense. You ran straight. All right.
And of course, the police came out and said, well, a human couldn't get through that window. Well, I did it. Lou Smith did it.
I saw Lou Smith.
It's crazy.
Example.
They were so focused on convicting Patsy or me that nothing else mattered. And then in January, they had sent some evidence in for DNA sampling, and the report came back middle of January. We've recovered unidentified male DNA from JonBenet's clothing. Does not match anyone in the family. John, Patsy, and Burke are excluded.
Yeah, the first one I think that they found, it was from a blood spot in the underwear, and it was her blood, but it was what they determined, at least based on enzymes, like saliva within the blood spot. Those are the first things that they tested and ruled the family out.
Right. Well, the police kept that a secret from the DA for 6 months because it conflicted with their conclusion. It's like, holy crap, what do we got to do about this? Because it's the first question the defense attorney would ask is, whose DNA is that? Oh, we don't know, but it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. Male DNA found in an assault case is a huge clue, and to discount it is absurd.
And they do eventually go back and get another sample that they put into CODIS from it. They get a large enough profile to put in CODIS, right?
Right. They actually had, the first sample was CODIS qualified as well. A new DA came in and set up her own investigative unit on this case, took the case away from the police. Now, they didn't position it that way in the media. It was like, oh, we want fresh eyes. No, I believe she took it away from the police, brought Lou Smith back in, who had left because he was disgusted with the direction it was going. And they started to investigate it again. And she did additional DNA testing.
This is like in 2008?
Yeah. And that supported the earlier DNA sampling, that it was an unidentified male DNA and had no explanation. Police tried very hard to explain it away. They even tried to get the county to pay for them to go to China.
I followed that one.
They wanted to go to China.
Right.
And start sampling.
But then they when they really honed in on, oh no, this isn't just like everywhere on the underwear, it's just in the blood spots, and we're showing these enzymes that show up in high levels with saliva.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, I did learn a little bit about DNA, and it's complicated.
It's very complicated.
Really complicated.
2008, they do touch DNA on the side.
We'll stop it right here, and we're going to continue analyzing this, but I'm going to stop it right here, and we'll move forward with the analysis. But up to this point, let me know what you think. Again, like, share, subscribe, engage with me in the comments. Love talking to you guys, your theories. But until next time, take it easy.